I'm back, and I'm better than ever. Better now for making things better. Face, face, 'cause your opinion don't matter. This maniac is gonna step on whoever.
It's time for episode 13 of the fastest growing wrestling podcast out there today. It is time for the Will You Stop podcast with your hosts. As always, leading the charge will be Brandon with his tag team partner Avi. And it's time to get this party started. Welcome to episode 13. Oh, it was a pretty busy week this week in the world of pro wrestling. What do you think of?
Well, we had a nice little Saturday night with a whole bunch of events. Then, of course, we had Raw and SmackDown. We got some news and notes from throughout the week. I figure let's just kick it off and start with Raw. You know, they came from the Nassau Coliseum this week. And as you know, there's always been a soft spot when it comes to wrestling at the Nassau Coliseum. I've gone to Raws, SmackDown, Nitros, countless house shows. And it's funny because even Bruce said, you know, if Madison Square Garden was always like the WWE's home field, number two is always the Coliseum. And I mean, I've gone to house shows where the place was barely half full during the, the new generation era. I've gone to house shows where the place was packed to the rafters. I've gone to Raws, like I said, and SmackDowns, Nitros. We went to the first Nitro there. You know, Nassau Coliseum is usually a hot crowd. And I considered going this week, but I was like, why bother? I mean, it's going to be 4 hours of pain and torture. And it really lived up to the expectation of pain and torture. Crowd, for the most part, I'd say by New York standards, was dead. You know, I don't think it was as dead as other places we've seen, but by New York standards, that was a pretty dead crowd.
Well, let's break it down. The show started off with Brock and Paul coming out for a promo. Paulie starts talking about the cash-in the night before. Says, I like the line here. He says he's got the stroke around here now. A little tongue-in-cheek for all the stuff going on. And he says he's making a 10-man all-star battle royal match between both brands. Rollins, Orton, Big E, Rey Mysterio, Roman Reigns, Baron Corbin, Braun Strowman, Bobby Lashley, Cesaro, and Sami Zayn. It's going to be a classic over-the-top rope battle royal, and the winner gets to be decimated and eviscerated at SummerSlam by Brock Lesnar. And he finishes the promo by basically calling everyone's Brock's bitch.
See, here's the issue I really have now with the current state of WWE. I got no problem with figuring out a number one contender. Why not just do an 8-man tournament in one night? You'll get a couple of solid matches out of it. You might even be able to come together with some angles out of it. Just to me, a battle royal, I've never been a fan of battle royals solving anything. I like battle royals, don't get me wrong. Some of the best matches ever been battle royals. I just didn't think this was the place for a battle royal. I think you're at a point now where you're struggling just to put together a card with enough matches to keep people interested. Go back to Sunday with Extreme Rules. I mean, I kind of skimmed through the pay-per-view. There was really nothing that interested me. I don't think anything even really happened. I mean, Brock Lesnar winning the belt was huge, but I kind of feel like I was almost 95% sure that was going to happen. I don't think anybody was shocked that Brock cashed in and won on Sunday. Do you?
No, not at all. It was totally expected, especially since Paulie the night told us that, spoiler, it was going to happen. Plus, let's be real. The Money in the Bank, it's kind of played out in passe anymore. I think they need to come up with something new. I think it's time to retire Money in the Bank.
See, I think you can go with Money in the Bank, but I think you should make it almost into like a championship sort of thing where, yeah, the guy can cash in for an entire year, but if he loses, he can lose the Money in the Bank. Make it a little more interesting. Give him something to lose in the meantime, as opposed to coming out and teasing and not teasing and eventually winning the belt or not winning the belt. But yeah, I get what you're saying. It's definitely kind of run its course. Otherwise, back to the pay-per-view, nothing spectacular happened. It wasn't a game-changing pay-per-view by any means. But, like I said, I think they could have done, I think they could have served their time better. And I'm going to get into it why later on when you bring up a segment that I'm going to go absolutely ballistic about. And I'm just going to go into it right now. They gave the women's fatal four-way almost 25 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
25 minutes and like 4 commercial breaks. So the crowd turned on the match. The wrestlers themselves, I think, turned on the match. Even the announcers couldn't keep the match going. Now, don't get me wrong. Between Renee Young and Graves and what's his name?
Cole.
Cole. You're not telling much of a story as it is. To me, Graves and Young, honestly, they remind me of like 2 kids sitting in the back of the class in 7th grade biology class making jokes about the teacher. They're beyond annoying. And Cole is probably the worst announcer in wrestling history. That being said, you gave 25 minutes to what was it? It was Naomi, Natalia, Carmella,
And Alexa Bliss.
And Alexa Bliss. You gave 25 minutes to those 4. Carmella, I like her character. She's good for 6 to 8 minutes in the ring. I mean, that match alone, you got to figure each one of those girls, you're going to get 6 to 8 good minutes out of them. Maybe Natalia gives you 10 to 12 minutes out of her. That match goes at most 10, maybe 15 minutes. You had 25 minutes and like 3 commercial breaks, followed up by a shoot between Natalia and Becky afterwards. I mean, that's almost a half hour right there dedicated to a match that nobody gave a shit about. In that half hour, you could have given us 2 or 3 tournament matches to decide your number 1 contender. So I said last time that, WWE is basically a show about a wrestling federation with a lot of miscast characters. They're miscasting their time also. The time allocations this week on Raw were ridiculous. You opened up with Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar going on and on and on for something like, 31 minutes almost or something like that? I mean, come on. Listen, I don't mind the opening shoot segment. I was never a fan of it, but let's be honest. That's pretty much what we've seen the last 25 years in wrestling, so I'm kind of used to it. But they're totally unnecessary. They have things that either go way too short or way too long. Samoa Joe and Finn Balor get, 3 minutes?
30 seconds.
But you're giving the women's fatal 4-way, which, by the way, to me, a match like that sets the women's revolution back. Way back. Because that's an old school, let me go buy a T-shirt something or a hot dog match. Because that was just deplorable how bad that was. If that match would have gone 8 minutes, I don't think anybody would have minded. You gave 25 minutes to that segment. I'm losing my mind over that stupidity.
That should have been a 1-fall match, not an elimination match, first off. Second off, Natty winning it, I get that we're in Toronto for SummerSlam, but I mean, it's a cold match. You're basically fabricating a match. It's a cold match. And again, like you said, Carmella, yeah, she's good for 5-7 minutes. Alexa, is she hurt? Is she not? I don't know what her deal is anymore. I mean, Naomi hasn't been on TV in weeks. Talk about cold. 25 minutes, it's too much. It's no reason for it, and that's why the crowd turned on her. On them, I should say, not her.
Well, it's not just that. I mean, you had this match that went on for almost 25 minutes. You also went to like 3 or 4 commercial breaks during this match.
Well, that's that whole edict from Vince having to have freaking commercials in between, no action going on during. That's why I get all these 2 out of 3 fall matches that they've killed, which surprisingly they only had 1 this week. They only had 1 2 out of 3 fall match this week, which surprises me.
Well, here's my issue with that. For me and you sitting at home, we're DVRing it anyway. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like we got this major loss. But you're in a situation now where you're going to kill the weak crowd you already have. This is not a crowd in the middle of Dayton, Ohio, or the middle of, Oklahoma. This is a New York crowd. This is your home team, Northeast crowd. You got more people there that have your quote-unquote insider information than anybody else. They know about the 2 out of 3 fall edict. They know about the commercial edict. They know when a match is during a commercial. We've gone to enough live shows to know when they've gone to a commercial. When you're now in your 3rd or 4th commercial in a match that really nobody wants to see, that crowd is going to turn on you quick. And I mean, the chance they had during that match, They were chanting for Cena. They were chanting for Orton. They were chanting for CM Punk. They were chanting for Daniel Bryan. I mean, I'm surprised they didn't bring out a Hulk Hogan or Bill Goldberg chant. There might have been a Randy Savage chant at some point. I mean, you killed your crowd. You killed your match.
It's true. There's no arguing there. Completely horrible time management and booking as far as that segment goes. But I guess the biggest news out of Raw was the return of Bray Wyatt.
I like it. Listen, I've been a Bray Wyatt fan since day one. I like the character. This whole Firefly thing, I like it. It's one of those things they're going to have to be really smart with it because knowing WWE, let's be honest, that's the biggest pop we've heard on a Raw in months, if not years. And I'm not even going to call it a pop for what it was worth. It was just, let's put it this way. It was the first time you had any genuine crowd reaction in a long time.
Well, people have wanted this. They wanted Bray. So finally getting it after months and months. Actually, it's been close to a year since he's even been seen live. So, I mean,
right. I'm happy. Listen, I'm glad they finally brought him out. I'm glad they actually went with it on Raw. Got Finn Balor off TV. I guess he's taking some time for, I understand, a couple of months. But this is one of those things they're going to have to be careful with. I kind of like Bubba Ray Dudley's analogy in his in a podcast where he kind of compared it to The Undertaker. And if you pay attention to The Undertaker, from 91 till probably Attitude, you didn't see him a whole lot on Raw. You saw him a lot on house shows and pay-per-views, obviously, but they didn't really overplay that character. And I think you kind of have to do the same thing here with Bray. And, bring him out when the timing is right. And he's going to have the right competition. Like, this is not a guy who can be doing squash matches. You can't put up against somebody that's weak or not over in the least bit. Like, you have to find somebody good for him. I like the fact he attacked Finn Balor because then Finn Balor comes back as the Demon King, and now we have something to work with, hopefully. Keyword, hopefully. What WWE does with it, who knows?
What is your opinion on the 24/7 title and Drake Maverick and R-Truth?
It's funny. There's definitely a comedic part of it that I enjoy. It's stupid at the same time. To me, I mean, you're giving it 6 to 8 minutes per week. I'm fine with that. You're not giving it, 25 minutes like you gave to a bad Fatal 4-Way.
I think Drake Maverick has come onto his own. For a guy who's only 5'2", he's making the best with the opportunity he's got. Rockstar Spud, Drake Maverick, he's awesome. He's perfect foil for R-Truth.
I've always been a big fan of his. I really hope they do more with him. I've always been a fan of his from his TNA days all the way through. It's fun. I was watching, I'm actually watching it right now, Raw, as we speak about it. I'm just kind of going through it. And I was going to bring it up how Ricochet now is back in the tag team scene again, apparently.
Yeah, he's in that 6-man tag. I don't know what they're doing with him. I think he's going to be one of those guys from NXT who gets lost in the shuffle. The case of people not knowing how to book him correctly. But you were mentioning to me, I think it was earlier today, how you were watching some of the 1995 ECW stuff, right?
Yes.
The Street Profits. Is that not a total Public Enemy vibe you're getting from their promos?
Yeah.
Hey, Johnny!
I'm not onto them. Honestly, I'm not with it. I don't see the reason or the point for it. Your tag team division right now is basically a joke. Yeah, you're going to bring them up, but what are you doing with them, honestly? I mean, it's new blood. That's all it is right now. It's just refreshing, quote unquote, is the best way I could put it.
And I like that they actually had 2 3-man factions having a match this week. The Club and the Lucha House Party. I like that the Club's actually, acting as a unit, not just as, guys standing outside for AJ. So hopefully that's going to be, a bigger to-do this time. Seth wins the Battle Royal. Not really a shock. And, that pretty much is Raw in a nutshell.
Yeah. What? So, at SummerSlam, you're going to go with Brock and Seth again. I just... Why? I mean, I get why. There's really not much else you can do with Raw at this point with the Universal title. Um, I mean, who else are you going to put against Brock? Braun Strowman, I think at this point you've turned into another big show. If Baron Corbin main events against Brock Lesnar, unless Brock comes in and completely destroys him, the crowd would turn on that so fast it's not even funny. Keep in mind, SummerSlam is in Toronto. Toronto is a loud, aggressive, smart crowd. So that crowd could turn on this pay-per-view real quick.
Oh.
I didn't see a reason to go with, I guess, I get, like I said, I get why you're going with Seth and Brock again. I don't understand why it had to be this way. I just feel like there had to be a different avenue we could have gone down with this, I feel like.
I honestly, I was texting in my group, and I actually thought that it was going to be Braun, the way, especially after his win and his match he had on Sunday. I really thought they were going to give Braun the nod.
I mean,
But
Braun and Brock, they had their run. That was what, 2017?
yeah, maybe early 18. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, because in January, Braun was supposed to have the match, and then he got pulled from the match. And then he's been, basically doing nothing ever since.
Yeah, I mean, they did nothing with it. I just don't see a reason to go back there. It's almost like, one step forward, three steps back if you do that. But by the same token, it becomes, okay, what are you going to do with him next? And you know what? You're going to go Brock and Rollins. Okay, great. Brock, I assume, is going to go over. What then?
If he does, what if the whole thing was just so they can have him win the title again at SummerSlam? So, I mean, what else are you going to do? You're not going to have Brock win Money in the Bank and then lose the match. So you got to put the title on him again. So what? You just do a hot potato just for just for SummerSlam, or was this just to pop a rating point on Monday? I mean, with them, who knows what they're thinking?
I couldn't even tell you what they're thinking, to be honest with you, at this point. But I mean, an idea that popped into my head, which I doubt is going to happen, is they invoke a wild card rule for SummerSlam and throw Kevin Owens against Brock Lesnar. I wouldn't mind that.
That would be interesting. Stone Cold Kevin Owens, you mean? Let's be real here. They have literally taken KO and they have turned him to Steve Austin. And Shane is now playing the part of Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm not even ready to talk about SmackDown yet because I have so much fury still for Raw. It's almost like I watch Raw out of habit, obviously. I can probably count on one hand the amount of episodes of Raw that I've missed since 1993, where I wasn't able to either record it, DVR it, and I had no clue what happened. I mean, even in the worst days of New Generation, I would still watch it on tape or, whatever I was doing back then. I mean, I DVR it now, obviously, and even if I don't watch it on Monday, usually by Thursday or Friday, I'll catch up with both SmackDown and Raw. If I don't catch them on Monday and Tuesday, usually by Wednesday, Thursday night at the latest, I'm caught up on both of them. And I mean, this week's Raw was just literally either the matches ran too long or they ran too short or they made no sense. Like you gave us the War Raiders or the Viking Raiders, whatever the hell they're called, uh, in a complete 1989 style squash match, which I actually kind of liked. And I told you, I think we should see more of those during the first hour especially. But what are you doing with these guys? You have so much potential, both those guys, and you're just wasting them. Heavy Machinery is getting more airtime than these two guys are.
it's like you just said, they don't know what to do with them. So let's just keep putting them into a squash match. And until we can figure out how to use these guys or what to do with these guys, we're just going to keep using them as squashed. And at least they're on TV and they're not being jobbed out in stupid matches. At least they're doing that 89, 90 superstars version where they're just killing some freaking nobodies.
Why did Ricochet and Rude go against the Usos?
No, it was a six-man. It was Ricochet and the Usos against Rude and the Revival.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah. Uh, yeah, I've always liked X-Man matches. I actually fast forwarded through that one too quickly, I guess. That actually wouldn't be a bad six-man feud now that I think of it.
I mean, Rude's lost the Magnum PI mustache. He's back to having his beard. I guess so much for that reboot of Robert Roode. And let's see, the first match, the Usos won it. Then the Revival and Rude won the second one. And then Ricochet pinned Rude with a 630 splash for the last. Then they had a whole schmoz with the club coming in. So, yeah, I don't know what they're doing with that. I mean,
You
I
know,
get
to me is that you have enough tag teams where you can actually run a good tag team division. And I guess I always say I've always been a very big fan of tournaments. You know, why not have a tag team tournament, get a number one contender, and have a real tag title match at SummerSlam?
is Vince against tournaments? Do you have any idea about that? Because it seems that he has opportunity upon opportunity to use a tournament format, and he just chooses not to. I mean, we could have a network special of a King of the Ring. That could be a big thing. And, you could do a freaking tag team King of the Ring or something like that if you want. And combine both tag teams. I mean, I just don't get if I don't know if Vince has something against tournaments or not.
I mean, if you look in the history of the WWE, I mean, you've had tournaments. I mean, listen, the King of the Ring tournament was a fixture at house shows in 1985 all the way until the real, they made the King of Wrestling. They've had world title tournaments. They've had IC title tournaments. They've had tag title tournaments. I don't know. Maybe he's against it now. At this point, I think his mind is so far gone. I don't know. I don't think he knows even what he's doing at this point. That being said, you have enough tag teams where why not just have maybe a tag team gauntlet match or a tag team tournament one night on Raw, and the winners get the tag title shots at SummerSlam? It would just make things a little more interesting, if anything.
It seems to me that WWE is really worried about their Raw ratings because it seems that they're doing things intentionally just to pop a quick rating. I mean, next week we got this Raw reunion show, and there is literally about 30 X stars showing up. How the hell are you fitting these guys in a 3-hour show among your current talent?
But here's what's crazy to me is that you say that, but by the same token, if you threw 8 tag teams in a tag team tournament or in a tag team gauntlet match in one night, and you promoted that the week before, where you basically said, we're going to have a tag team gauntlet match, 6 teams, 8 teams, whatever, one night, the winners get the tag title shots at SummerSlam, I guarantee you'll pop a point just from that.
And you'll be able to pull your whole little gimmick when it comes to, those commercial breaks, because in between each match, you can put your commercial break on, and this way you can spend an hour doing this gauntlet match.
Right. So if you really want to pop a rating, throw together a gauntlet match, throw together a tournament, winner get the tag titles at SummerSlam, then you're really going to pop a rating point. But to have Samoa Joe and Finn Balor go out 30 seconds, you're not doing much for me in that one.
All right, I want to read off this list of people coming back for Raw. And you tell me if you think this is going to, quote unquote, move the needle. You ready for it?
Good.
This surefire Hall of Famer, Jillian Hall, Eve Torres,
Wow.
the coach, Alicia Fox, Triple H. Melina is coming back to WWE for the first time since 2011. Kelly, the real Stone Cold, Steve Austin, Sergeant Slaughter, HBK, Kevin Nash, Mick Foley, The Godfather, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Booker T, Sid Vicious, The Road Dogg, Mark Henry, X-Pac, Eric Bischoff, Santino Marella, Devon Dudley, Ted DiBiase, Rikishi, Farouk, Jerry Lawler, Christian, Kurt Angle, The Boogeyman, The Hurricane, Jimmy Hart, Scott Hall, Briscoe and Patterson, and Medusa.
Here's my thing. Unless you're between the ages of, say, 35 and 45,
who's going to care?
It's been well documented that the WWE has actually lost that old school, new generation attitude crowd over the last couple of years. No one's going to care. You're catering to 8 to 14-year-olds. Congratulations. That's the crowd you have now mostly, 8 to 14-year-olds. The majority of pops, quote-unquote, you hear are the kiddie pops you used to hear at house shows when the Godwins used to come out. Beyond that, your adult-aged fans, for the most part, you've lost them. You've lost your attitude fans. You've lost your ruthless aggression fans. You've lost your new generation fans because you cater to this younger audience. So you want to bring in guys that none of these people have actually watched wrestle, except unless they've watched it on the network? Well, that makes sense.
And
You're,
I got
you're,
something interesting.
you're bringing in Hulk Hogan to a crowd that has no clue who the fuck Hulk Hogan is outside of a couple of clips here and there.
They're really getting desperate. That's what it's. This reads desperation to me.
It's almost like Vince went to Eric and goes, how did you get my fans back? And Eric said, well, you just brought Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage over. Oh, that's a great idea. Let's just bring back all the old guys and we'll get our old fans back.
And two names that were invited and declined were Bully Ray and Jim Ross. And Tony Khan gave Jim Ross the blessing to do it. And Jim Ross said no. And Bully Ray, the same thing because of his obligations, I guess, between Busted Open Radio and because he's with ROH. So.
Listen, the whole concept is stupid. No one's really going to care.
Yeah. Avi, is it cool to hate WWE? Is it internet cool? Is it the cool thing to hate WWE?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because the same people that hate on WWE sit there and have orgasms over the stupidest shit that happens on a pay-per-view or an episode of Raw SmackDown Live. It's the in thing right now. It's just, it's almost like if you actually ask someone why they didn't like WWE, they wouldn't be able to give you an answer. I don't dislike WWE. I dislike what they're doing lately, which is basically just insulting our intelligence and giving us garbage on TV. But by the same token, I'm seeing a lot of, AEW hate coming out all of a sudden.
Well, I'm going to get into that, but I want to read you a quote from Seth Rollins. And I wrote this down, this whole quote. And he was asked in an interview, is it cool right now to hate on WWE? And this is what he wrote, and I want to know if you agree with him or not. We are the Yankees. It's easy to hate the Patriots. We're those teams. We're the dynasty. It's easy to hate us, but we're still the most popular company in the world at what we do. We're so far beyond being a wrestling company that it is very easy to point the finger and hate on us.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with him in the sense where they're not really a wrestling company anymore. It's basically, I'm telling you, I think that Vince McMahon has created a weekly television show, two of them really, about a wrestling federation. And with that, it's kind of like what Seth Rollins was saying. What I call them the Yankees, the Patriots, I would say popularity-wise, if you walked over to somebody in the street and said, name a baseball team, they'd probably say the Yankees. I think if you said name a wrestling federation, they would say WWE. I mean, they're on TMZ, ESPN, Nickelodeon, etc. So I think based on popularity, yes. But based on actual in-ring excellence, absolutely not. I think AEW is giving us better matches. I think Impact gives us better matches. I think Ring of Honor gives us better matches. I think New Japan gives us better matches. I mean, how rare is it where WWE gives you even a 4-star match, let alone a 5-star match?
Yeah, very rare.
What was the last 5-star match in WWE? Was it Cena and CM Punk?
I think that might have been, yeah.
You're talking what? Money in the Bank 2011?
Correct.
Okay, so that means it's been 8 years since WWE had a 5-star match. I think their last 4-star match was Styles and Cena at Royal Rumble, I want to say 2018.
I think it was more 17 or 16, actually, because Cena's been out for a couple of years now as a full-timer.
But that being said, what we would consider a great WWE match versus what's a great wrestling match are very different. I think we're almost more forgiving with WWE than other federations, whereas what would be a 5-star match in AEW or Impact or Ring of Honor or New Japan, doesn't exist in WWE. And I think what we would call, say, a 3-star match in New Japan would probably be a 5-star match in WWE. I just think the wrestling styles are so different. Now Vince has finally okayed the Canadian Destroyer. Well, there's a start.
So now everyone's using it because it's okay now. So, everyone's using it.
I remember back in like the late 90s, everyone and their mother was using either a super kick or a DDT.
Or
Like
the
that was
power or a power bomb.
right. Like that was like everybody's move was either a super kick, a DDT, or a power bomb. You know, at some point, The Rock was doing DDTs. Triple H was hitting sit out power bombs for a while. You know, that was like your big thing. But that being said, it's just, you know, I think Seth Rollins is right and he's wrong with what he said. I think he's right in the sense where they're like the Yankees and the Patriots as far as their popularity goes. I'll agree they're definitely more than a wrestling company because they're not even, to me, they're not a wrestling company. They're more like a show about a wrestling company. But that being said, I definitely would say they're not the best in the world in ring-wise. I think Impact, Ring of Honor, New Japan, and AEW are giving us far and away better matches than WWE is.
But does having a better match and not having a storyline leading up to it, there's got to be an even exchange to make it interesting. I mean, you can't just have a cold match and just because it goes 25 minutes and has 20 false finishes, yeah, from an in-ring standpoint, but from, getting a crowd emotionally invested, you need to have that storyline too, especially in North America.
Oh, I agree, but listen, AEW, you got to give them a chance to get on TV and get those storylines going. So AEW, I'm not going to, say to them they're giving us nothing but cold matches. They're really just getting started. On the other side of that, Impact, their TV presence is non-existent right now. I think if they get on Access and get a better TV product going, you'll see a change with that. Um, perfect example this week where Cedric Alexander beats Drew clean. I've never been a fan of those big upsets in wrestling. Not with a guy like Drew. You want to pull something like that, you pull it with somebody who really doesn't mean much to the product. If you're going to bring in, say, let's say it happened to someone like Elias right now. Elias isn't doing shit. So if it happened to him, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But Drew has the ability to be a world champion or a universal champion. Why would you put this moron over Drew of all people?
Do you think an upset like that, a quick roll-up thing, maybe they feel it's not going to hurt Drew? I mean, it's not like he got killed. He was doing the kill, and it was like a quick roll-up, reversed it out of nowhere, kind of like a 1-2-3 Kid type thing. I mean, when that happened to the Kid, it made X-Pac, but it didn't hurt Scott Hall.
Yeah, I can see that. Honestly, I got to be honest. I think it's time for Drew to turn face. He's not killing it as a heel like I thought he would. I'll be honest with you. I think he's the kind of guy that is going to get over as a face. I really do. It's funny because you brought up Razor Ramon, and I think in a lot of ways, Drew is almost like a modern Razor Ramon. I think if you made him a face, you would get more mileage out of him. What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, that was his whole run in NXT. He was a face, and he didn't become a heel until he came on the main roster. I mean, if he ends up turning on Shane, right there's your easy out for him to become a face. And as a face, I think he could replace Rollins as the top guy on Raw.
I'll tell you right now, if he was a face and he beats Brock Lesnar, you're going to get a pop out of that crowd.
What if this happens? A little fantasy booking. Rollins gets destroyed, and Brock, after he wins the matches, keep beating on him, and Drew comes out and says, it's real easy for you to beat on someone when you're a part-timer and whatever little thing he goes, but let you see you beat someone who's your size. And Drew freaking hits the Glasgow kick and wins the Universal title. I guess it's kind of a Yokozuna Hulk Hogan situation there.
I wouldn't mind that.
I mean, I think that right there, then you're putting the freaking boots on Drew and shooting him to the stars.
I've always been a fan.
Like Macho says, the cream will always rise to the top. I do want to touch on what you were talking about with AEW, though, because I do have a couple of things that came out of Fight for the Fallen that bothered me. And I want to address them to you and see what your opinions are of them. I get we're kind of, on a holding pattern to get to the weekly TV shows, but even so, you need to have some sort of continuity or make sense of things. Case in point, you had that 6-man tag, and you had MJF on the same team as Shawn Spears. But 2 weeks ago, MJF came out after the chair shot and was concerned about Cody and went on to say that, Cody's one of his best friends in the business and stuff. So why would MJF team with Spears and not even do anything heelish towards him? To me, that makes no sense, and that's a lack of continuity.
I think it's hard to get continuity when you don't have a weekly show. And I think we definitely have to be a little more forgiving with AEW for now. I think they're just trying to find their feet, find their balance, figure out where they're going with what. If they were having a weekly show and pulled this stunt, I'd be all over it. But I think for now, we just kind of have to just say, all right, listen, let them get on TV. Let's get the weekly show going. If they're still pulling shit like this, then yeah, we have a problem.
Okay. What about the melancholy announcing?
Yeah, I got an issue with that. Yeah, I'm not a fan of this announce team. Interesting off-topic story. Joe Buck, he's the announcer for the NFL on Fox, and he does the World Series. For a couple of years, people's biggest complaint was that the way he would announce games, you would think he was having a conversation with you. No excitement, no raising of the voice. You're a sportscaster. You're supposed to give a certain level of excitement to a big moment. He never did that. And for years, fans complained about it. And now he's one of the loudest announcers there is going. I almost feel like he's spiting the fans by doing that. I kind of feel like either A, you're going to have to get this announce team to get their shit together, or B, you may have to go in a different direction. First of all, why is there no real heel announcer? That is a staple of wrestling now since like the mid-'80s. Jesse Ventura was the first one to start it, and it's never stopped since then. Corey Graves does it now. And granted, Corey Graves is becoming so annoying because, like I said, him and Renee Young, they seriously remind me of two people sitting in the back of biology class making fun of the teacher in junior high school. I don't know what your feelings are on the two of them, but they've become beyond annoying.
Well, Renee was always annoying. Corey is very inconsistent in his announcing. It's either he's a heel 1 minute, then he's like pro face, and then he's heel, and he's in the middle. He needs to basically choose a side. But they got to stop with their whole little, side comments and trying to. It's like when you have someone come on SNL and they intentionally try to pop the SNL guys and break the character just to make them laugh while they're doing it live. I feel that's what Corey and Renee do to each other. They're just trying to make them break character and, laugh during the show.
Right, and they're actually being more annoying than anything else in the process. Like Renee Young does not belong on TV. Aside from screaming and carrying on like an idiot, she does nothing else for the product. But back to AEW, yeah, the announce team, like I said, they're working out the kinks now. I think the announce team has to be reevaluated. I don't know if Jim Ross has the energy anymore to be the announcer he once was. I never thought he was that great, but he did bring a certain level of energy to Raw during the Attitude Era, and definitely pay-per-views. With the Stone Cold, and all that other stuff. He brought a certain level of energy. If you look at the best announcers of all time, and you look at your Gorilla Monsoons, you look at your Tony Schiavone's, I don't care what anybody says, the guy was a great announcer for years. You look at your Joey Styles, they brought a certain level of excitement to even the most ridiculous situations. I think you need that from your lead announcer. But that being said, if you look at Gorilla Monsoon, he had Ventura, he had Heenan. You look at Schiavone, he had Heenan. He was with Jim Ross for a little while in WCW, which people really weren't a fan of. It was just two basically straight-laced reporters kind of reporting. But, you look at Jim Ross, he had Ventura also in WCW. You look at Styles, he had Cyrus after a while that kind of added to his repertoire, so to speak. You need that heel color guy who's going to bring in those jokes, who's going to make those off the cuff remarks and stuff like that. That's where your chemistry comes from. And I think AEW needs to find that immediately.
JR, to me, seems more like a old man telling the kids to get off the lawn. He was He was complaining about how many DDTs you have to do in a match. Like, that's what you do? You're complaining about how many DDTs are used in the match? You can't tell the difference between Excalibur and Alex Marvez. It's like, seriously, they could be going back and forth, and you would think he's talking to himself. It just that's one thing that, there's no excitement. And I think Jim Ross might just be too old for it. He's 64, 65 years old. He just doesn't have the energy he once had.
I also remember his wife died, so I mean that may have
Yeah.
taken a lot out of him. I think he's doing this just so he has something to do to keep his head out of the situation. I would say maybe keep him if you're going to keep him around. Give two other people with him. I've kind of always been a fan of the three-man booth. I think an idea to throw out there, honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing it, would be Tony Schiavone and Jim Cornette.
Schiavone did appear. He did a control center on the latest AEW video, which was a little throwback to the old WCW stuff. He was in front of the green screen. He did a control center to lead into the interview with Sean Spears and Jim Ross. And I like that Jim Ross kind of did that interview thing he did because it got over Triple H and Mankind back in the day. And they actually moved along the storyline with Cody and Sean Spears. And now Tully Blanchard is going to be managing Sean Spears.
Yeah, that's a weird one. I mean, Tully has not been active in wrestling now and got to be, over 25 years. I think the last time Tully was full-time in wrestling, you're talking like 1990.
But the interesting thing I found about that means that if Tully Blanchard's got his foot in the door, he's holding it open for Tessa to show up.
I hope so.
So-
That is a talented girl. I mean,
Tony?
that is a girl who, honestly, if you want to look for an it factor in a female wrestler, I mean, she could wind up becoming like the female version of The Rock, seriously talking. She has the looks. She's not your typical gorgeous, female girl, but she's a good-looking female athlete. She has the looks. She has the mic work. She has the ring work. I could see her becoming a crossover, a star.
Do you think that AEW needs to be more mindful of the casual fan versus the hardcore fan and give more of an explanation to certain characters and wrestlers who are appearing on the show?
Yes and no. I say yes because you're trying a new federation, but I say no in the sense where the casual fans really aren't around these days. I think wrestling is at a point now where whatever's left are your hardcore fans, so to speak. I feel like we're in a very similar spot right now, wrestling-wise, where it was right before Nitro came on, where you're talking September, go back to August of 95, and let's look at where wrestling was. You have WWE coming up for SummerSlam 95, where your main event was Diesel versus Mabel. Let me repeat that. Your main event was Diesel versus Mabel.
Hey, listen, Mabel was the third man. He was supposed to be the third man originally, so I don't want to hear it. Mabel had game.
It's. I mean, you're the only match that saved that card was basically your ladder match between Ramon and Michaels. And what's amazing about that is right before that match even happened, McMahon told him you can't use the ladder. That was when WWE was going through its whole no blood, no weapon phase. So that's what WWE was. On the outskirts, you had ECW, and to me, ECW 94, at the end of 94, all of 95, all of 96, I mean, I loved it. I mean, I was watching last night Gangsta's Paradise from 1995. I mean, the shows ECW was putting on in 1995, before Malenko and Guerrero left for WCW, when the luchadors were popping up like Conan and Psychosis and Juventud and Mysterio. That was just amazing stuff. Mikey Whipwreck was doing his Cinderella run. It was just really just great stuff. And that was kind of coming up now. And if you look at today's wrestling, it's almost similar, where WWE's in this giant PG shitstorm, where they have no direction whatsoever. AEW is kind of like your WCW in a sense, where, they don't have Hogan and stuff like that, obviously, but they have certain level of star power. They're kind of getting things going. Fans really aren't sure what to make of them yet, but there's definitely an interest. And then kind of like on the outskirts, like the way ECW was, you have this combination of like New Japan, ROH, Impact, and MLW, where you have like these four federations that are giving you great matches, that are giving you some reasonably compelling storylines, and they're getting somewhat of a following, but you're not really quite sure what to make of them, but you're definitely going to watch. And it's almost like history almost repeating itself again. It's like I feel like we're 24 years ago, almost in the same spot.
To me,
So it's I think there are good things coming up. I like what AEW is doing so far. Um, there's obviously some kinks they have to work out. I think they have to look into a different announcing crew. Uh, I have no problem with their set. I have no the production seems to be getting better. The camera work on the last show was definitely better than the camera work at the show before that. I mean, they missed some serious spots in the last show. I think the one we just watched, the camera work improved. But like I said, it's a work in progress right now.
what do you think about Tony Khan learning to pull audibles at the last minute, depending on crowd reaction? My case in point is they had that triple threat tag match, and they gave it the Dark Order won the match. First off, Evil Uno, he's a slob. Like seriously, this guy in the mask is a slob. It could be me under that mask, and this guy. But the point is, you see how Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy were completely over in that match. You don't pull an audible on that booking and have them go over that match to move forward in the tournament. To me, that was a mistake, and that match made Luchasaurus look like a star, and he has star written all over him. He's big, he's jacked, he's got Jungle Boy with him, and the act is completely over. I mean, I think they should have pulled an audible on that booking decision.
Yeah, they could have, but like I said, I think AEW right now is a work in progress. They're learning. We have to cut them some slack. If we're having the same conversation, 6 months to a year from now, there's issues. But I think you got to give them some time. They're a brand new endeavor. They're a brand new federation. They're just learning things. I mean, you look at WCW. WCW didn't find its groove until the NWO came around. You're talking June of '96. So you're talking about a company that, for all intents and purposes, was around. I mean, it was basically, WCW basically came out of Jim Crockett Promotions, which started in 1933 and then broke off and became its own endeavor, Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. You're talking back in 1973. So you're talking a company that really basically took 23 years to find its footing. And if you want to really get technical, okay, so Ted Turner buys it in 1988. It doesn't take off till 1996. So you're talking 8 years under a billionaire owner to really find its niche. And that was with a pretty good cast of characters. So if WCW was given 8 years, you got to give AEW some time also. It's only fair.
What would you say would be a proper amount of time for them to get their stuff together once they start their weekly show? What do you think? 6 weeks to
No.
balance out the I'm talking about as far as like whether they're going to be consistent with the ratings or not. Do you think it's going to be about 6 weeks to see where they stand, or you think they need at least 6 months?
I think you need 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, you need at least 2 or 3 years. I mean, Nitro pops up in September of '95. They don't even. I mean, well, back then though was different. It's hard to compare it to Nitro. Remember, Nitro was not a new endeavor. WCW was around producing pay-per-views and TV under Ted Turner since 1988. So it was 6 years before the NWO popped up. And it was 7 years before Nitro popped up. But even until then, they had WCW Saturday Night. They had WCW Main Event. You had WCW Worldwide. So they were producing shows for years before Nitro came around. I mean, to be fair, I think you have to give them a good 2 or 3 years. They have to figure out what their niche is going to be. They have to figure out what kind of audience they're catering to. You have to give them time to develop some angles. They're going to have to develop their heels. They're going to have to develop their faces. They're going to have to develop their production quality. I think you're looking at a possible 2 to 3 year wait period. I mean, if you actually think about it, Turner takes over WCW in 1988. But that was already a company that was already been produced for years. I mean, we've never really seen anything like AEW before, except really ECW. And ECW, they take their current form August of '94. They don't pop up really on the mainstream scene, I want to say, till what? Early '97?
Yep. In fact, I wouldn't even say when they show up on Raw right before Barely Legal.
Yeah. So you're talking early '97. So you're talking almost 3 years before ECW really got that hook. So ECW starts from scratch. They really started as Tri-State Championship Wrestling in like late '92. They become Eastern Championship Wrestling in '93. They become ECW in '94. That's when they really start to take off. So you're talking August of '94 up until around April of '97. And they don't get that TNN deal till what? '99?
And but the thing is, we've never seen anything remotely like AEW coming, a brand new company, and within 6 months of their creation, they got a major TV deal, and we're not talking some rinky-dink station. We're talking a national major station in TNT. They're selling out two of the 4 shows. 50% of their shows they sold out in their first 6 months of experience in 4 shows. That's never been seen.
No. I listen. AEW is an incredible endeavor, and
I'm sorry, am I boring you? You okay? Am I keeping you awake?
no, I'm just trying to get my thoughts together. And the thing about AEW is that we've never seen anybody. I mean, if you look at it, AWA comes out in 1960. They don't get a national TV deal till 1985. 25 years to get a national TV deal. WWE comes out in 1963, and they don't get a national TV deal until, I don't know, 2019? If you think about it. WCW only gets a national TV deal because their owner owns the stations. So we've never seen anything like this. ECW pops up in 94, takes 5 years and a wrestling boom that was generated by WCW and WWE just to get them a TV contract. If there's no wrestling boom being generated by the Monday Night War, ECW is not getting a TV deal. And as a matter of fact, I mean, our listeners may not even know this, but ECW, when they were on MSG and stations like that, they weren't on because they were being chosen to be on. They were a paid infomercial.
And that's why they were on at 2 a.m.
Right. They were basically buying an hour of TV time. And if you remember when it first came out, it was on twice a week. It was on Thursdays and Saturday nights at 2 a.m. And they basically bought 2 hours every week on MSG as an infomercial for their product, which allowed a few things. A, it allowed them to get on TV, but B, it allowed them to fall away from FCC interference in the sense they were on at 2 a.m. and because it was an infomercial, they didn't fall into those guidelines. They could show a lot of the stuff they were showing. So, I mean, AEW is definitely in rare company. It's by itself right now. It's the only company to pull off what it pulled off. But like I said, ECW is the best example of a startup company, and it took them, almost 3 years to finally find that national niche where they're on pay-per-view and getting that kind of crazy following. So I think to be fair to AEW, you're going to have to give them a good 2 or 3 years to figure out where they're going.
I have an interesting question. If Tony Khan isn't a sports person owning some soccer team in England, the Jacksonville Jaguars, if he's just a straight-up millionaire who wanted to start a wrestling company, do you think he still gets a TV deal? Or do you think it was those connections that helped him get TNT?
I'm sure his connection has something to do with it. But I mean, listen, when you're worth $7 billion, you're still worth $7 billion.
Yep. So interesting thing came up, but Meltzer's reporting that Eric Bischoff actually won't be part of creative for SmackDown. He's going to be more of a conduit between Fox and WWE.
I don't understand the point of that. I mean, you're going to tell me Vince McMahon in the 40-some-odd years he's been in wrestling doesn't have enough experience with how to deal with TV people? I mean, he only basically managed to lock down $2 billion contracts. But he needs somebody. I mean, unless maybe he's just going to put all of his effort into the XFL. That's why he needs Bischoff there. But you're going to tell me he has nobody else in his office that's been with him for as long as he's been around that can do the same thing? I mean, it makes no sense to me.
So, I mean, we got to see where it goes. But I don't feel that Eric Bischoff would have moved halfway across the country to Connecticut just to have to, be a conduit with Fox. That to me, that doesn't make sense.
But here's my biggest issue with that. I mean, let's just say that is the case for whatever reason. Eric Bischoff hasn't dealt with a TV company now since 2000. 2000. I'm pretty sure things have changed in the last 19 years in regards to TV and TV contracts and the who, what, when, where, why, how. So, I mean, to put a guy in charge of your television, I guess, production that hasn't been involved in wrestling or television production in 19 years, what am I missing here?
I don't know, but Bishop's going to be on Raw Monday, so maybe, we're going to get to be able to see something of what's going to be happening. I mean, I like Paul, like I said earlier, I like Paulie's little thing about I have the stroke now. But maybe something's going to happen with Bischoff. And another thing, Shawn Michaels is actually going to be at the commentators table on SmackDown this week.
Yeah, I saw that. I'll tell you what I find interesting, by the way, about this whole thing with Bischoff and Heyman, is that I've always been a fan of Bischoff. I think I liked him on Nitro. I liked him in his WCW days. I liked him when he was the general manager of Raw. I liked him in Stephanie's feud. I like his 83 Weeks podcast. I think he has the knowledge and the insightfulness. But what I find interesting about this entire thing with Eric Bischoff is that nobody actually knows what his role is going to be. So my question becomes, was this guy literally just hired to keep him away from AEW? Is Vince that gone at this point where he really thinks that Eric Bischoff is going to put a dent in his product by going to AEW?
Vince, let's be real. The way Vince books and does things these days, he might be losing it a little up top. I mean, he's 75 years old. I mean, let's be real. Age is going to get to him. Even the genetic jackhammer. Age is going to get to him.
Why is Michaels doing commentary, by the way? Was he commentator at some point?
I don't know. I mean, as far as I know, he's commentated, 3 matches in his career?
And this is the issue I have with WWE. Instead of concentrating on your current product and trying to make it better, you're doing nothing. You're bringing back guys that haven't been on TV in 20 years. And my biggest issue with all that is this. Let's look at your current crop of your top guys in WWE, okay? Yeah, Brock Lesnar, your champion. I'm going to give you some names right now, okay? Randy Orton, Rey Mysterio, Big E, Braun Strowman, Roman Reigns, I said Seth Rollins, Baron Corbin, Bobby Lashley, Sami Zayn, Cesaro. Those are the 10 guys that were in your Battle Royal on Monday night. Those are basically, except for I'd say Kevin Owens and a few others, your top guys right now in the company. Let's go one by one. Randy Orton, been a top guy now 15 years. Me and you have never been into the guy. Why is he still running on top? I get why he's there. You can rely on him. If you put the belt on him, no one's going to cry about it. If you put him in a main event on a pay-per-view or Raw, SmackDown, no one's going to cry about it. He's become that reliable guy, almost like the way Jericho was for many years. So him I get. We can cross him off. I'm not going to cry. What is Rey Mysterio Jr. doing as a top guy right now in WWE?
I got nothing. Rey Mysterio should be using the mid-card to help elevate young guys to the next step climbing up the card. He should be in that U.S. title feud, below the U.S. title feud, to set up the guy to move up the ladder. Almost how Samoa Joe is being used. He's used more...
Which I have so much against. Samoa Joe should have been in this match.
Right, but I'm just saying that's how they use him. They use him to elevate guys and help them, the grizzled veteran to help the younger guy get over. And he should not be in a main event.
Why wasn't Samoa Joe in this match?
Because he had to pin Finn Balor in 30 seconds so Bray Wyatt could attack him.
If you want to throw Rey Mysterio into a tag team with somebody, I honestly have no problem with that. He just doesn't belong in this match. Big E, I have no words. Like, what is he doing near a main event of any sorts?
Yeah, he's a tag champ. He's a tag team guy. Why wasn't Daniel Bryan in this match?
I mean, because he has an announcement to make apparently.
Which he never did. He just dropped the mic and he walked off. So,
Braun Strowman, I think the polish has come off that diamond a long time ago. He's a big show to me now.
well, I know that they are trying to rebuild him. That's what this whole thing with Bobby Lashley's been about. I've been reading that they're trying to rebuild him to be a monster again. So I guess whatever doghouse he was in, Vince has let him out of it. And now they're trying to rebuild him back up. Yeah, Lashley. First off, Lashley is one of the most misused guys in WWE. If you watched his run in Impact Wrestling when he was champion, Bobby Lashley can be phenomenal. And they are completely misusing him.
I have a feeling. I have a feeling they're going to put the belt on him at some point by the end of the year. Just a hunch.
He should have won it. I think a Brock Lesnar Bobby Lashley match at SummerSlam would have been big.
Yeah, I think it would turn out to be a shit fest as far as a match goes, but I think building up to it, you could have done something with it. Seth Rollins, I mean, I guess that's the guy now. Sami Zayn, I mean, he's lost right now. I think that's a guy that just, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. What do you do with Sami Zayn at this point? You brought him back. He looked good, and then you lost him.
He needs to be in a tag team. He's one of those guys that you got no direction with him. Find someone who's similar, put him in a tag team. Obviously, you're not going to put him with KO because he's a better heel, and they want to run with the whole Stone Cold Kevin Owens gimmick now. So you find someone on Raw who doesn't have a direction, and you build into a tag team.
Cesaro, if I'm Cesaro, I ask my walking papers and I go straight to AEW. I think he would be a star in AEW. He is lost in WWE and has been now for the better part of, 6-7 years?
I mean, except for the bar, what has he done anyway? He had a good 3-year run with the bar with Sheamus, but otherwise he's done nothing.
So I'm going to say something now, which might piss off a lot of our listeners and would probably send shockwaves to the IWC. I think for all intents and purposes, Roman Reigns' career as a main eventer is over. I do not see him as a major player in WWE anymore. I think he's looking to cross over into Hollywood. I think he can. He has the look. He has the connections, obviously, with The Rock being a part of his family. I do not see him as a main eventer anymore in wrestling.
He's not. Let's be real. I think the whole leukemia thing took the bloom off the rose. I mean, thankfully he's okay. You don't wish that upon anyone, but he's not even a top guy anymore. He doesn't main event. He's not even a mid-carder. To me, he seems more of a part-timer.
I think for all intents and purposes, he's done as a main eventer. And then you have Baron Corbin. The words can't describe Baron Corbin well enough.
Why? Why Baron Corbin? Why was he in the match? Didn't he just lose a match the night before that says he can't get any more title shots? This was basically a chance for a title shot.
I don't understand Baron Corbin. I don't understand his character. I don't understand why Vince has him in the main event scene. I don't understand anything about this guy whatsoever. I was never into him, never cared for him. I just don't get it. I mean, that being said, we've been complaining about Raw now for months, ever since we started. We're what now, on episode 12?
No,
Has there been
13. This is episode 13.
Has there been an episode yet where me and you have not shit all over Raw?
No, because Raw has been shit. Give us a good Raw, and I promise you we will praise it. But They're not delivering.
I mean, if you think about it, Stomping Grounds, we didn't shit all over Stomping Grounds. Stomping Ground actually wasn't the terrible pay-per-view, and we gave it its just due. Extreme Rules, to me, it just wasn't much to talk about.
But It was much better than we expected. From an in-ring standpoint, from pure wrestling, the matches weren't half bad. I mean, the Lashley Bobby Braun Strowman match, that was a good brawl.
Yeah, I found a lot of the matches were very stop and go, if you understand what I'm saying. A little too much stop and go, but otherwise it was better than I thought. Haven't given much talk to SmackDown about this week. They opened up with this nonsense with Shane McMahon. Shane's got to get off TV. I think everybody realized it at this point. I think he realized it at this point. And then from there, you go into a cold match, Cesaro and Aleister Black. And for all intents and purposes, this should have been a 25-minute match. And for some reason, it just didn't click.
Right, agreed. And I think we had the same thing the night before, or 2 nights prior. It didn't seem to click for me at the pay-per-view either. I don't know if it's just a clash of styles or what it was, but it just didn't mesh up to me.
What's funny is if you watch the match closely, when Black hits his kick, the reaction is absolutely priceless when he knocks out Cesaro's mouthpiece. These two, it should have been a 25-minute classic match. For whatever reason, it just didn't click.
And Cesaro is not a guy who should get fed when you're building someone up. This is, for all intents and purposes, this was Aleister Black's reboot from, the splitting from the tag team with Ricochet. This is basically his singles debut, if you will. And you should not be feeding a guy like Cesaro to Aleister Black.
I'll give Aleister Black credit. He does move well in the ring. Looks like he's hitting the gym a little more lately. When you with Selena Vega, you better. I actually like his music when he comes out to the ring. I just expected him and Cesaro to definitely click better. They went from what should have been a 25-minute good match to an 8-minute blah fest.
Why is Dolph Ziggler in a main event on television still?
Don't get me started. Listen, you know me. Have I ever been pro Dolph Ziggler in any way, shape, or form?
You were a fan when he was a cheerleader.
That was about it. I'll tell you what I actually enjoyed this week on SmackDown. Liv Morgan finally coming out and talking. I have to say, I kind of liked how she kind of tore into Charlotte a little bit. And I kind of like Charlotte's rebuttal. She's like, yeah, everybody has a blue tongue naturally. I've been waiting for Liv Morgan to show us something for the longest time. I think she might be onto something now.
Well, apparently she's going to have some sort of gimmick change because after she lost, she yelled at Corey Graves, if you want to see the real Liv, you're going to see the real Liv. So I don't, does that mean you get rid of the pink hair? That's a mistake in my opinion. It makes her stand out. It makes her different than the other girls, than being another blonde.
I could see her going down that Harley Quinn type character. Keep the pink hair, keep the blue tongue, and kind of pull that crazy chick off. She's basically dressed like Harley Quinn to a degree, so that wouldn't bother me. I think she definitely has the potential to do something with that. Honestly, SmackDown to me is almost cartoonish at this point.
We what else we had? We had Ember Moon gets a title shot at Bayley because they won a tag match together. Shinsuke Nakamura and Ali are going to have it.
They won a tag match that was 3 minutes long?
And then Bayley challenges Ember.
I do have to say, though, Mandy Rose is worth every minute she's in the ring.
Okay, Corey, relax.
I'm a Mandy Rose fan. She's from New York. Nice girl from Westchester. Today was her birthday, by the way.
Happy birthday, Mandy.
She's now 29 years young. That's a girl who honestly should get more of a push. She kind of has that classic Trish Stratus look, so to speak. She works pretty well in the ring. I don't understand why her and
Sonya
are not getting tag title shots at the very least against the tag champions who haven't been on TV now in 4 months? I don't know how long it's been.
Well, they were on this show. They did the classic honky tonk man gimmick and intentionally got counted out against the Kabuki Warriors. So I like Ember's finisher, by the way.
Yeah,
that Eclipse stunner off the
I've
top.
always been a fan of Ember Moon. I've been a fan of her since her NXT days. I think she's got a lot of potential. I wouldn't mind to put the belt on her.
I think it's going to happen at SummerSlam, honestly. I think they're going to use this thing with Bayley, and I think Bayley's going to elevate Amber, and I think she's going to win the women's SmackDown women's title.
I think the only way you get Bayley over again is she does a Bob Backlund circa 1993-94 snap.
Do it. Have her. She loses the title.
And snaps.
And just loses her shit at the end of the match.
Snaps.
You know what's interesting? Sonya and Mandy, they're actually come from that rare breed of people from Tough Enough who didn't win, but still elevated to the top.
Yeah, I remember them when they were on Tough Enough.
Yep.
I wouldn't mind seeing Bayley snap in this sense, where she loses the match to Ember Moon, and then Kayla comes out to interview her, and she snaps on Kayla.
Leave Kayla alone. She did nothing to you.
Actually, I like her more than any other announcer.
Yeah.
I think she actually does best in the job out of all the announcers. I mean, you have the blonde chick who just popped up, who just is to me is like Melba Toast.
Who she is, I don't even know who the hell she is. Sarah Schreiber or some bullshit. I don't even know.
I mean, Charlie Caruso is as obnoxious as it gets. When
I know you're.
When she's on ESPN First Take, I just don't watch that day.
I know you're a huge Charlie Caruso fan.
Oh, she's like everything wrong with Manhattan these days, all the transplants. And then she goes on First Take, and she ruins one of my favorite sports shows.
And then it was interesting what you said earlier about RKO, Randy Orton, because he pins Kofi in this six-man tag. So it looks like it's...
I'm actually watching that right now.
So it looks like he's going to go against Kofi at SummerSlam, which kind of leads, credence to the reports that he's going to go into October when SmackDown goes to Fox as a champion.
That first night, he's probably going against Roman Reigns for the belt. That's my assumption.
I didn't watch them yet. I know they dropped a couple of videos, but Truth is at Comic-Con, at San Diego Comic-Con right now, and apparently they're going to do some 24/7 stuff with him and Drake Maverick. Truth is comic gold. He's found his niche where he should be, him, Carmella, Drake Maverick. I think, keep him where it's at. He's turned that ugly belt, that 24/7 that we grunged at, and he's actually turned it into something good. And it's one of the most enjoyable segments. And it's considered one of the top-rated segments each week, which is crazy.
What kills me is that, back around, I want to say, during the Invasion angle, maybe with the Alliance back in, what was it, 01, 02, WWE did a lot of comedy stuff. And I would say with the 24/7 title, go back to that. Bring the comedy back. That was one of my favorite times. You had Austin singing songs of Vince and stuff like that. So I have to get off that topic real quick. And, it amazes me on SmackDown. You have Andrade against Apollo Crews, and they literally had the same exact match that Finn Balor and Samoa Joe had.
That's exactly what I was getting to next. And I was actually going to compare that to the whole thing on Raw with Drew McIntyre and Cedric Alexander. I'm going to tell you something right now. I said that it didn't hurt Drew to lose like that to Cedric, but I think it hurt Andrade to lose to Apollo Crews that way. So I think it was the complete opposite.
Andrade should be the main event scene. You got Zelina Vega with him. The guy can work. She can work the mic. She has a great character. What are they doing with this guy?
I want to see... Honestly, I wouldn't mind this. Andrade turns on Zelina. Zelina goes with her husband, and you have a face Andrade going into an intercontinental title feud with Shinsuke Nakamura.
Nah, I'd leave Andrade where he is. I like him where he is, Andrade. He's a good heel. Zelina Vega fits that mold well. I don't know why you're putting Apollo Crews over like that. And your main event is Kevin Owens against Dolph Ziggler. That was no rhyme or reason.
It wasn't about Ziggler. It was more about KO playing that Austin role. The ring gets surrounded by the heels and Shane. It looks like, they're going to all jump Kevin Owens. Shane Vince McMahon gets stunned again. KO runs out through the crowd, gets away from them all. I mean, if you close your eyes and just listened, it could have been Attitude Era time with Steve Austin. That was such a playoff and basically a ripoff and a redo of freaking Austin.
Yeah, but you know what, though? You could have gotten so much more creative this week. Listen, you could have gone with Drew against KO. They could have had a great match, and that would have been fine as your main event on SmackDown. Instead, you went with some garbage main event of Dolph Ziggler or KO to further the Shane feud, which nobody has any interest in.
The only hope I have is that it leads to a match at SummerSlam where if Shane loses, he's off TV. Like that's the stipulation. But I think let's talk about KO for a minute. As an Austin type anti-authority character, I think he works. He totally works in that type of way.
Yes, but he's not working with Shane, and it's just the angle's not working.
What if it leads to your first match on SmackDown, the first Fox show, RKO versus KO for the WWE title, with KO winning it?
I have no issue with that. It's just like I said, I don't see him. The angle's not working. It's Shane. It's Kevin Owens. It's a repeat of something from 20 years ago. It's not working for me.
And this is all Shane's fault by being so overexposed on television for the last 6 months that no one wants to care. Pure X-Pac Jeff Jarrett heat. That's what Shane gets.
Oh, it's beyond that. It's different level.
And that was our week in wrestling.
Yeah. What is on tap for next week? You have Raw with the reunion, SmackDown with, I guess, more Shane and KO.
This is an interesting thing that popped up today. WWE is actually doing a network special next Saturday, the 27th, from Nashville, Tennessee. I think it's a SmackDown house show, and they're calling it Smackville. And it just came out of nowhere. Like, it just popped up today. They just announced that they were doing this show, and it's going to be on the network. So maybe they're going to start doing more of those classic old school MSG once a month house shows.
I've been saying for years they should do that on a network where once a month you show a SmackDown house show, once a month you show a Raw house show, and just do them from random locations. You know, it doesn't have to be from MSG or any of those big cities or anything like that. You know, it's just going to, just go from a random location like Nashville. You know, do it from somewhere. Have fun with it.
Well, the main event for that show is going to be a three-way for the WWE title with Kofi defending against Samoa Joe and your favorite wrestler is Dolph Ziggler.
Fucking Dolph. Fucking Dolph. Like, what are we doing with Dolph?
He's just there. He's a good hand. So
Hey, he doesn't need to be in the main event of anything.
Yeah. Nope, he does not. But he's directionless if you think about it.
So is most of the company.
Yeah, well, but otherwise, we got SummerSlam in a couple weeks. Then right after SummerSlam, we got Fight for the Fall. We got All Out with AEW. That's their next tentpole pay-per-view. So I'm actually been thinking, when and how are they going to do their WrestleMania event? I wonder at what point they do that.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's going to come up at some point, obviously, so we'll make to be seen. I have to say, though, I liked that arena that AEW was at this past week. At first, I was like, what the hell is this? But I have to say, I was a fan of it.
Yeah, it was an amphitheater. It was different. It had a different look. And supposedly Tony Khan got the idea of the layout from South Park. Because apparently South Park about a year ago did a WWE wrestling show, and the exact layout of that was that. So I want to close it out with a name from the past who made a big announcement today, CM Punk. He is going to be headlining StarCast 3 from Chicago, same weekend as All Out. So I'm sure that's going to get the IWC buzzing. And, they're going to predict that Punk signs with AEW. What do you think those chances are?
Good for both parties. I think it's going to happen. I think Punk has listen, Punk has to make a living. He has bills to pay. I'm not sure what his finances are, obviously, but his UFC was obviously a disaster. The guy's a wrestler. His matches are never bad. He's never horrible to deal with. I think for both parties, it's a good thing. It's more star power for AEW, which they can definitely use. Listen, a Kenny Omega CM Punk match would sure be fine. A Cody Rhodes CM Punk match would probably be fine as well. I think it's good for both parties.
And we're going to see what happens. Listen, if you do a whole video package during All Out and announce October 3rd, our debut on TNT, and the AEW debut of CM Punk, that's your hook for your very first show.
I don't even think they need a hook. Honestly, I think they're going to be fine with their first show regardless. I think there's enough press and enough people looking. I think just from your WWE fans alone, you're going to hit a 3 rating easily.
Well, we're going to see. They still even announced the exact date or day. We're just all speculating because that's what we love to do. We love to speculate. But if you want to speculate with us, there's only one way to do it. You want to say it or should I?
Oh, I like when you say it.
WillYouStopPodcast.com. Your one-stop shop for everything Will You Stop podcast. Ask us questions. Hit us up on social media. Let us know if you like the new format of us being actually seeing us. Because I think this is going to be the first time we're actually going to be able to get this up with our faces on it, not just our voices. And you with no shirt for some reason. But, you know.
I figured it would add to the effect.
Oh, yeah. That's what we need. But, yeah, that's going to wrap us up for episode 13. Wow, we're 13 episodes in already.
Lucky number 13.
We're doing this for about 3 months now. We started WrestleMania weekend. We're coming up on SummerSlam weekend in a few weeks. And we're rolling. So come roll with us. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like our videos. Let us know what you think. Join the conversation. Let us know what you want to talk about.
People, if you have any requests, come to us. Hit us up. We will discuss anything. We are your wrestling prostitutes. And we're free. Free as can be. Free 99. Doesn't get freer than us. You tell us what you want, we will discuss it. If you want us to do a watch-along, we'll do a watch-along. We have access to every pay-per-view, Raw, Nitro, you name it. We got access to it. We pay $9.99 a month for our subscription to the WWE Network.
How much? Wait, how much was that again?
$9.99.
$9.99.
We will do watch-alongs. We will do sing-alongs. We'll do anything you want. If you have any questions or anything that needs to be discussed, come to us. We will talk about it.
Well, I'm Brandon. That's Avi. And that's going to do for episode 13. We'll see you for episode 14 next week.
See you, people.